would say that my current thinking is that we have a long way to go with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Over time, it's evolved, getting a better understanding as a person of what that actually means. And so I think I naively thought, because you do something, then or you make a statement related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, that everybody lives that. And what I have discovered over time is that there's a difference between what people state and what their actions sometimes are. And we want to make sure that there's some congruence and alignment with what we are stating around equity and access and inclusion. It's important as a leader to be willing to step forward to say what your beliefs are and to make sure that we have structures in place to support those beliefs. And so I think as superintendent, I have to declare that, yes, I want to have access and I believe in access for all and what that looks like, and working very closely with staff to ensure that our young people have access and their families are connected, and that we don't have systems or structures that are not in alignment, or if we do, that we're breaking down some of those barriers so that we are able to provide support and resources for our families. From a structural standpoint, it's looking at what are our systems, and when we see that we have structures or systems that hinder equity and access and inclusion, that we break those barriers down, and that we also are very sensitive and strategic about asking people what they want. Because sometimes I think we speak from a place of, well, this is what everybody wants, but we don't always ask to find out, is this what people really want or need? And how are we providing a on-ramp or a roadmap so that they're able to access programs, and that they are able to have equitable programs, and that there is inclusion for our students who have different needs, and our families that might look different or have different experiences, making sure that we've provided more than one on-ramp or more than one place where they can get connected to our district. Over the course of my career, there have been little moments, and I can't name like just one incident that was the kind of turning point. I've seen from a structural standpoint, from school systems as a whole, that we often have structures and we think from a very middle class kind of Eurocentric perspective. And so we have structures that if you're not able to adapt to that, you may not always be successful. And I think it is, again, important that you provide multiple on-ramps and not always look from the perspective of, a middle class kind of a framework. And what I mean by that is there's some resilience and creativity from our families that have had to navigate different situations, from our families that may be newcomers who are new to our country, and the things that they have done. There's a skill in how to navigate a structure and a system that you may not be familiar with. For our families that are in poverty, same thing. They create systems and structures so that their kids can be successful, and it may not look like I would do things. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's about what they need to do or what they feel like they need to do to make sure that they're successful. And we have to be able to embrace that. An example, just very quickly, sometimes we talk about parent involvement. And how we look at parent involvement may depend on your experience. And what I mean by that, when I began my teaching career in Minneapolis, parent involvement meant room mothers, and that's what they were called, room mothers. And just even the thought of that, it's like, okay, well, we can have fathers and grandparents who can be room parents, but then just because we have parents who are coming into our building who are able to volunteer and help with projects or do tutoring, it does not mean that parents who are not able to do that are not involved. And so it's kind of expanding our definition of parent involvement. For some families, parent involvement may mean making sure that their children are at school and clean and on time, or they're asking about how their day went. And that's a form of parent involvement too. But because we don't always see that, we say, oh, parents are not involved. And that may not be an accurate narrative. I like that question because it goes to the heart. And so, yep, I can create structures, or we can say declarative statements around what we will do or what we won't do as part of an organization. I think touching people's heart is a little bit different, making the case for this is why we are doing this, or this is our outcome of what we expect. People still often have to do their own self-reflection on what does it mean? And I think all of us need to do that. I don't pretend as if I'm fully woke in the sense of I get everything. Sometimes I'm learning new things, and I try to be reflective about my practices and my work. And I ask other adults to do that as well. It's like, this is what you believe. If you really say you love all children and you want all children to succeed, when that is not happening, what are you doing? What is your next step? And so it's piercing that heart to get beyond kind of the political correctness of statements, because we can do the speak, so to speak, where we can kind of spew out, this is what we believe and all children can learn. But if our actions aren't speaking to that, then we have to be able to address that. And so when you're talking with other adults, it's having those courageous conversations to say, hey, you said this, and here's where I'm struggling. What did you intend for this to be? And really being able to stay engaged in dialogue without it necessarily becoming a confrontation around, because I disagree with you, I'm saying you're a racist or you're not this. And that's not what it's about. It's how do you engage others in dialogue around their work and their practices and their actions, and do it in a way that encourages people to continue to engage and look at, is it equitable? Does it include everyone? Are we looking at it from a diverse perspective? Just as we are looking at our virtual learning, structure and format, it doesn't fit everybody's need. And so we're trying to, again, from a system standpoint, look at what's going to be best and what's safe for families and what do they feel comfortable with, knowing that it doesn't fit everyone's needs. And I think it's important as we are moving towards looking at a hybrid model for our families, that still won't fit everyone's need as well, but being flexible and listening to families, listening to our staff to say, this is where it's working, this is where it's not working. Recently we held listening sessions, and I think that they were extremely informative. There were no big ahas there were things that we had kind of discussed within the organization with teacher leaders and building principals and such, but it was just reaffirming to see, okay, these are the things that we were thinking that were not working as well. And when parents or students kind of reaffirmed where their struggles were, it's like, how do we adjust and take that information and see what resources and other connections we can make so that people do feel like they're included, that we are looking at it from their perspective. And I think, as each family situation is very unique to their family, we can't meet all the needs of all the families, but looking at it from a systems approach about, here are some of the needs that a portion of our community has said that they need support in. How do we as an organization say, okay, here's where we're able to provide some resources, or here's the work that we're going to do moving forward, or here's where we're going to connect you with this organization because we're not able to do that.